Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Red Brick Summit 2021, I welcome you all to the next session of the TRBS Speaker Sessions. In the second ever virtual TRBS, we are extremely honored to host Mrs. Lulu Raghavan. Lulu Raghavan is the Managing Director of Landor and Fitch India and leads a large team of creatives and strategists focused on brand transformation for clients. She has over 2 decades of experience in brand strategy, brand expression, brand experience design, cultural transformation, brand management, and brand performance. She's part of the Landor and Fitch's Global Management Board and the APAC Leadership Team as well. Prior to the integration of Landor and Fitch, she had set up and successfully ran Landor in India for 12 plus years. She is a renowned industry commentator and a lead thought leader as well. She anchored Bloomberg UTV's Beyond Logo show and is a speaker and moderator of several brand and design conferences. She was named as one of India's 50 most influential women in media, marketing, and advertising in 2019 by Impact magazine. She evangelizes the power of design and brands to create commercial value and social impact. She is also very passionate about several initiatives, that some of which include the Landor and Fitch Good Spot, the WPP Green Team, and CII Design Council, among others. In her free time, she actively mentors younger people on personal branding, personal growth, and development. And so without further ado, let's hear it from Mrs. Lulu Raghavan.
Thank you so much, Shreyas. So excited to be here. I really wish I could feel the pulse of everyone, all the brand enthusiasts who are looking forward to hearing a little bit about brand transformation today. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to spend about 10 minutes walking through my journey, another 10 minutes on what extraordinary brand transformation means for companies, for product brands, service brands, as well as for individuals. And then I'd like to spend 10 minutes going through key success factors at the organizational level, as well as the personal level. So let's start with a little bit about me, just so you have some context when I'm sharing my insights and story. You'll have a sense of where it's coming from. I was born in Madurai. Hopefully all of you know where it is, famous for the Madurai Mallipu, which actually is very sought after by the French perfume houses. I tell you this because my identity was born in Madurai. I was born to a conservative Tamilian family, but my mother gave me the name Sulakshana. That's actually my real name. And my grandfather didn't like the name Sulakshana. He thought it was formal and traditional, and he wanted something much more global and unique. So Sulakshana became Sulu, and Sulu became Lulu. That's where Lulu was born. My roots are from Madurai in Tamil Nadu. I spent the formative years in Bangalore at Baldwin Girls High School and Valley School. Some of you may be familiar with Valley School, which is J. Krishnamurthy's school. It's that foundation school. I share this with you because it was at Valley School that I truly learned the purpose of education, which is self-awareness. And that's where my journey of self-growth and development started. I couldn't stay in Bangalore too long. My father got transferred to Mumbai. And here I went to 2 schools, Queen Mary's first till the 10th standard, and then Cathedral and John Connon School for the 11th and 12th. This is where my leadership and sportsmanship skills were developed. I participated quite a bit in sports activities, debates, drama, basically everything that I possibly could in addition to academics to be really well-rounded, which helped me get a full scholarship at a top liberal arts school in the US. I went to Davidson, one of the prestigious liberal arts colleges in the US in North Carolina. At Davidson, I learned the values of honesty and integrity as well as diversity. Can you imagine that we used to take our exams anywhere? We didn't have to go to the exam hall to do exams. The honor code is what Davidson was really, really famous for. And it allows you to take a very, very different stance on education and learning. Imagine sitting in your dorm room and doing your exams. Your roommate may have done the same exam the previous day, but honor code bounds her from not telling you. Such important life lessons learned for me at Davidson. I also had a fantastic opportunity to spend a semester abroad in Tours. I learned French, which really helped me later on land my first job. So the importance of a language to connect with others, I cannot emphasize enough. Of course, I did Hindi and Sanskrit when I was in India, but learning French really opened up a whole new world to me as well. I graduated from Davidson in 1997 and then decided to come back to India. And that's where, by chance, a family friend actually introduced me to Ogilvy. I was very interested in banking and consulting, like I'm sure most of you are. I studied economics at Davidson College and applied math. But this gentleman looked me straight in the eye. I had gone to him for some career counseling. And he said to me, Lulu, do you want to be a small fish in a big pond? Or do you want to be a big fish in a small pond? It took me a while to figure out what he said, but I finally understood it. And I got a break at Ogilvy Brand Consulting, where Mr. R. Sridhar was starting brand consulting for Ogilvy. And they were really trying the model of an advertising agency looking at brand consulting services. My boss at Ogilvy, Sridhar, also gave me the next piece of valuable advice, which all of you will love, which was to get an MBA. So off I went to SPJN Institute of Management and Research, a very different MBA to many that are out there. You know, in the summer, we have a program called DOCC, or the Development of Corporate Citizenship. And I truly learned the value of social responsibility at SPJIMR. I graduated and moved to the US because my boyfriend then, husband later, was working. And I landed my dream job at Landor, a storied firm in the world of brand consulting and design. I had to transfer my visa from H4 to H1. And just when my H1 came through, we had a massive round of layoffs. This was 2001 in San Francisco. .com bust was happening after the boom. And I was almost about to get laid off. But my language background, as well as my MBA, really helped me weather a lot of phases of downturn in the economy in those days. And then I started building from strength to strength. I had to do everything, not just the job that I was hired for, which was a naming strategist. Imagine in those days in San Francisco, we had 15 people in our naming group and focused on product and naming for companies. I spent 4.5 years in San Francisco, and my husband got a transfer to New York. So we moved to Landor in New York, or I rather moved there. And then again, through some transfers, landed up in London, where I spent 1.5 years and got super lucky to be able to rebrand one of the iconic brands. And I'm hoping it's going to be revived again, Jet Airways. A truly fun project where I learned how Indian companies think about brands, how they value brands, and how when you get on the international stage, branding and marketing is unlike anything that you would think about locally. In 2007, I had an opportunity to come back and set up shop in Mumbai. And I was, along with a gentleman who was running the Middle East, given the opportunity to set up Landor in Mumbai. Initially, by default, not just design, we were the 5 or 6 ladies of Landor, as we were called. And we worked on iconic projects like the brand architecture transformation of the Taj Group, the rebranding of Cafe Coffee Day, the branding of the Delhi airport, amongst many others. Over the last 12 years, it's been a fantastic journey. And just pre-COVID, we remained a niche consultancy. On July 9th, this was the lockdown celebration last year of Walter's Day. Walter Landor is our founder. And through COVID, we had an integration, or a merger, if you will, coming together of 2 iconic companies founded by Walter Landor and Rodney Fitch. Walter Landor had famously said that products are made in the factory, a brand is created in the mind. He also said a brand is a promise, a great brand is a promise kept. Rodney Fitch from England, a real pioneer in retail design, really believed that good design is as useful to society as good money. So the coming together of these 2 companies created Landor and Fitch, which today is the largest brand transformation company in the world. And what we do, our whole purpose is to create extraordinary brand transformation by design for our clients. So everything we do involves aligning the brand strategy with the business strategy, thinking about the expression of the brand in its full terms, how it looks, how it feels, how it behaves, the experience of the brand online, in retail, using the brand to truly ignite the culture and shape the employee experience, being very rigorous about brand management to create value for the brand, and then keeping an eye on brand performance as well in order to track how the brand is contributing to the business over time. We are the largest design agency in India, and we work across branding, retail, digital, architecture, and experience as well. You know, before it was all about logos and labels. Today, brand transformation starts and ends with transformation of the customer experience. That's become extremely critical. And the coming together of Landor and Fitch was a historic moment in India because two companies that had served some of the largest companies in India were now one. So whether it was BFSI, FMCG, hospitality, technology, automotive, real estate, education, or even telecom, Landor and Fitch has touched all of these companies and have worked on different parts of brand transformation, some of them more holistic than others. These are some of our most prestigious clients we worked with. And for the first time, I got the team together for a Diwali celebration because I took over during the lockdown, and integrating both of these agencies and culturally bringing them together on one platform was a challenge, but we now truly believe we are one company. A lot of folks ask me, so what are you most proud of? What are the 3 or 4 highlights? I think Shreyas mentioned this. It was super fun for me to do a TV show. I hosted Beyond Logo on Bloomberg TV just to help clients understand that a brand is much more than a logo. I was also on the design jury at Cannes. It was a transformative experience for me to truly understand how some of the best strategic and creative minds the world over think about the value of brand to businesses. I've also written many case studies and been featured in some. But what I'm super proud of, leave all of those other things aside, is mentorship. Many of these folks you see here, men and women, have gone on to become leaders in their industry. We have the head of design for Diageo, somebody who leads the PepsiCo food business for Wunderman Thompson, executive director at our company, and another lady who worked with us for 10 years, who moved to British Columbia and is now the brand manager of 11 districts in British Columbia to work on the destination brand. And she was chosen from 350 Canadians. She had just moved there and she got the job. So I'm super, super proud of her. And that's mentorship. And the way that I like to give back is through my website and newsletter, which is all about helping you in terms of professional growth and development. So you can check it out, luluraghavan.com. What I really want to spend time on now is to talk to you about the power of brand. I hope those of you who signed up for this session have absolutely no qualms about the fact that brands matter, and they matter more than ever before. I don't know if you know that actually 30% of enterprise value is intangible, and a lot of that, depending on the industry, is brand. In fact, Michael Eisner, former CEO of Disney, said, "We all know that the Disney brand is our most valuable asset. It's the sum total of our 75 years in business, of our reputation, of everything that we stand for." So you see, brand plays a huge role in driving value for the business. And if you look at a 20-year view of how the index of strong brands performs against the market index, whether it's the S&P 500 or the MSCI World Index, there is no doubt that investing in brands delivers superior shareholder returns. Take a look at this slide here. Look at the red line. You'll see how the index of strong brands significantly outperforms the market. And what's most interesting is the period of downturn. If you look at 2008, for example, the index of strong brands dipped less than the index. And when growth comes back, it really pulls ahead. That truly is the power of brand. We think about brand as sitting at the heart of an organization and being very intrinsically linked to the business strategy, to the experience design, how all stakeholders actually experience the company, and as well as the culture and how it's embedded in the culture. Some of you may be wondering, brand, brand, brand. I'm going on about brand. What is a brand? Jeff Bezos says that brand is what people say when you are not in the room. So it's really about perceptions or associations. The simplest definition of brand is associations, but it's the associations that your customers say or your stakeholders say of you, not what you say. But if you're intentional about what you stand for and use all of the tools available in the branding toolkit, others will say the same of you as you wish them to say. Then people ask, well, if that's branding, what is personal branding? I like to think about personal branding as about how you're remembered as an individual. I love this exercise that I do in some of my workshops where I ask people to write an obituary. Imagine you were dying or you died, and people went on Twitter and were saying something about you in 140 characters or less. What would they say? What's the legacy that you're leaving behind? That's what personal branding is about. So let me talk about how inside out brand transformation happens. I'll give you a few case studies and hopefully it'll be clear what the process is. Successful companies and individuals use brand to transform the culture first. So it starts very much in the internal realm. So if you look at Mahindra, for example, 10 years ago, they developed the whole brand positioning of Rise. Rise was a rallying cry, a strategic intent, a purpose, and a meaning for the brand. They call it their reason to be, the rallying cry, a philosophy, a call to action. It's them stretching their arms towards perfection. They think about it, who they are, and together it is what they do. So they define their pillars and their core values all synced up with Rise. And if you can imagine, they spent 3 years on internally socializing the brand before it went externally. So Rise is a big deal at Mahindra. And any brand that wants to transform needs to transform internally first. They also have the Rise Awards, which if you look at some of the brand pillars and the core values, it really exemplifies the Mahindra employees who truly are an embodiment of what Rise stands for. Similarly, when it comes to personal branding, I'm a huge advocate of going in before you go out. What does that mean? A lot of times we think that personal branding is about having a presence on social media, about shouting from the rooftop about your achievements. Actually, no. It's about deeply introspecting and articulating the value that you provide to everybody. Definition before designing and delivering the experience is really critical. So go in before you go out, and you need time and self-awareness to truly determine what your personal brand should stand for. Once you've done the internal work, it's time to reimagine the experience of your brand. Companies spend inordinate amounts of time looking holistically at the customer journey. This is something we did with BMW to reimagine the sales experience. So meticulously plotting every touch point of the brand, and then thinking about how their audiences interact with the brand at every step of the way. So the look of the brand, the feel of the brand, the talk of the brand, what the brand actually does, and how the brand even dreams. Let me show you a quick example of Etihad Airways. By the way, this was the starting point when we worked with Etihad, pretty drab, uninspiring. Other than the name, it did not have much recognition with its brand assets. But Abu Dhabi was a place on the move. I don't know how many of you have been. It's super forward thinking. It's one of the most fascinating places on earth. The sheikhs there have invested in visionary architecture. They patronize, there's a lot of cultural patronage. There's unprecedented luxury. And Etihad actually acts as an ambassador in the air. And so we were really thinking about Etihad as a destination, not an airline, because when you are a guest with them, you're a guest of Abu Dhabi. So how do we use this to transform Etihad. We needed to ensure that Etihad had a similar perception and ambition as Abu Dhabi by really synonymously linking the two. So the brand strategy for the rebrand of Etihad was centered around this idea of remarkable. So Etihad as a brand where you will experience unique and innovative experiences that you will feel compelled to remark upon. And when we started building the experience map, the core of it is the brand. Why does Etihad even exist? We help them articulate this notion of transforming what they believe travel could be. The brand idea of we are remarkable then found its reason to be in the distinguishing beliefs of the brand, finding inspiration outside of airlines, really embodying a generosity of spirit, having the Abu Dhabi anything is possible spirit and respect above all else. So we then started to imagine how can we borrow and be inspired by the facets of Abu Dhabi to rebrand this airline. So for the visual identity system, we chose gold and brown shapes, which when locked together form an unending landscape, which is representative of the beauty of the desert dunes, as well as the avant-garde architecture of Abu Dhabi. And you'll start to then see how this system was carried through in how the brand feels. This is the airport first class lounge. You'll see the desert dunes in all their glory represented here in the architecture, the look of the brands, the gorgeous livery on the Etihad airline. I hope if you remember what it looked like when I initially showed it to you, you see the gorgeous transformation, how the brand actually speaks. So every touch point of the brand, product nomenclature, the voice of the brand, very, very much in line with the brand positioning, even the internal service rituals, the engagement, all of that had the touch of remarkable. So every touch point is the manifestation. And one of my other favorite quotes from Michael Eisner is that a brand is a living entity. It's the sum total of 1,000 gestures. Every gesture matters, right? So this is really truly the opportunity of the brand to be remarkable by sponsoring events and other things that create remarkable opportunities for the brand. So what came of this? It was considered one of the sexiest redesigns of the year, and it made a huge impression. And anyone who's experienced Etihad, I'm sure would see the story come true. So brand is story as much as it is signals. Similarly, from a personal branding point of view, think about the sum total of all of the touch points. You just saw the airline touch points. If you had to look at your personal touch points, you may not yet have a business card, but you can certainly have a website as you go in for your recruitment, a LinkedIn profile, Google search results, published articles, but also your appearance, how you look, how you speak, your handwriting, body language. All of these are leaving a footprint in the minds of your stakeholders in terms of who you are and what you stand for. So that was truly about reimagining the experience. So we said internal transformation first. So go deeply inside to figure out your true value. Reimagine the experience of how your stakeholders will find you and feel about you. And then it's really important to communicate your extraordinariness internally, externally, and keep doing it. We were involved in the global rebrand of Wipro. I'm sure all of you know what it looks like. It was the sunflower, and they really wanted a new identity for a better and bolder future. What's interesting is they were primarily known for their outsourcing capabilities, but they were growing exponentially, and their desire to be a strategic partner of choice in digital transformation was not recognized as much as they wanted it to be recognized. So the task was to evolve and refresh the brand to support the ambition. Our research showed that while Wipro was growing and strengthening, they were not perceived as a business transformation partner, and they did not occupy a well-defined territory in the client's mind. And so there was a need to communicate their true value. We developed this big idea of connected insights and a new narrative for the brand, which then got reflected in a bold new brand mark, which has lots of interesting stories. It's called the Radiance. And Wipro spent equal amount of time internally and externally really communicating this change. This was the brand launch to 300 of their top customers in the US. So communication was extremely important. And the outcomes of this exercise for them was there's a common understanding of the brand amongst employees. It created new demand for them. Internal launch campaign created that excitement and engagement. And analysts tracking Wipro commented on the positive messaging. And this consistent delivery of the transformation is still underway. And of course, there are a lot of changes right now. When you are communicating about your personal brand, it's really important to be super crisp. So I love this test of the elevator pitch. So if I ask you something, tell me about yourself. Can you do it in less than 10 words, excuse me? How can you think about your skills, your strengths, your credibility, your values, and bring it all together in a very, very powerful statement, right? So if I tell you, hi, I'm Lulu Raghavan, I'm a brand evangelist who's deeply passionate about creating commercial impact and social impact for our brands, right? How do you get it to be really crisp? Also manage your global footprint, your Google footprint, sorry. Use all the social media channels that are out there and do something different on every channel. If you find me on my website, it'll be very different from what you see on Instagram or on LinkedIn or Twitter, which I'm not a huge fan of Twitter, and Clubhouse, which I've dabbled with as well. So as you think about your personal brand, think about each of these channels and start thinking about how you want to show up, because this is what truly defines you. And when somebody goes into Google and punches your name, the right associations should pop up. Because when you do all of this, the transformation that your brand has been will supercharge growth. This is a full case study of Digit, which started life, by the way, as Oben General Insurance. And the CEO then, Kamesh Goyal, truly felt that insurance in India was very cumbersome, very similar to aircraft design of the 60s. And he had the backing of Fairfax Financial. And he had a vision to truly transform the industry by keeping it simple. We partnered with Oben to arrive at a very clear strategy for the brand and a core purpose of making insurance simple, to move away from the German name Oben, which meant above or at the top, to a name that was far simpler and alluded to digital insurance as well. This is the brand platform. They exist to make insurance products that are simple and transparent, right? Hello, simplicity. What a beautiful idea. If you go to the website, you'll see how it translates. And of course, Digit is truly a brand that's going places. I'm sure you'll see that they're one of the most valuable unicorns in 2021. So let me conclude now with some key success factors for transformation, both for companies at the organizational level as well as the individual level. So I'll start with the company ones first. We truly believe that you have to make the process inclusive, but ultimately you have to have one decision maker. Branding is not democratic, right? Ultimately, somebody has to make the call. When you're thinking about brand transformation, it's important to respect tradition, emotion, and experience, but make a case for change based on both logic as well as magic. Otherwise, one or the other will truly hold you back. We also believe that brand guidelines documents of yester-era are long gone. Today, the guidelines of the brand should inspire, not create fear psychosis. Anybody who's done brand management at an FMCG company knows exactly what I'm talking about. This is super critical. And I talked to you about how Mahindra spent 3 years launching the brand internally. Many companies do just the opposite. There'll be a big ad in the Economic Times, and internally people would be seeing it for the first time. That's a sure way to truly disempower your people. So don't do that. Your people are your most powerful brand ambassadors. Also ensure change goes much deeper than logo change. Otherwise, it's just lipstick on a gorilla and today's digital age that'll smack of cosmetic change and not real change. We encourage you to use the brand as a flag bearer of your business transformation. A lot of time, there are many initiatives, digital transformation, cultural transformation, HR transformation. There's so many things going on in a company. The brand can be a unifier, a glue, a flag bearer of this transformation. Very critical that it's not just communication, but that the brand promise can be delivered at every touch point of the brand. And execution, persistent is super, super important, right? Paul Polman, former CEO of Unilever, famously said 99% of brand building is execution. A lot of us are not very good at it. We're excited about strategy, but not execution. But you have to flip around the order and investment of time and energy in execution and persistence, because that's how true brands are made. Just a few more thought starters on building your personal brand. I believe that it is like raising a child. You give it an identity and values. It takes a while, but at the end, you will be quite proud of what you've created. Some thought starters. So I believe that a healthy brand starts with a healthy mind and body. I thank Greg Well, author of the book, The Ripple Effect. It all starts with sleep. I wish I could see you because I'd be asking for a show of hands of how many of you get 7 or 8 hours of sleep. If you don't sleep, you don't make good, healthy eating choices. When you don't do that, you're not moving. If you don't move, you can't think. So actually, your output and productivity are directly linked with how much you sleep, eat, and move. And without this, your personal brand is going nowhere. I'm also a huge believer and fan of feeding your mind, garbage in, garbage out, page 3 in, page 3 out. So be very intentional about the stimulus that you give your mind. It's also important equally to take care of your soul and your spirit. For some of you, it may be culture, others religion or meditation. Wherever it comes from, don't neglect your soul and spirit and only take care of your mind and body. It's really important to define a vision, a dream for your work, right? If you can dream it, you can do it. And so you really have to imagine and dream about the highest potential that you can achieve in your life. And then you must develop and nurture your persona. You have a voice, use it. This is especially true for women. Sometimes we're shy. We don't actually express our opinions, especially when we get into the corporate world. It's really important to remember that we must express ourselves. Growth only comes from stepping out of your comfort zone. A lot of people ask me, how do I make my personal brand stronger? Make sure that you're growing, you're constantly growing. When it comes to leadership, you must lead with your natural style. Don't pander to a stereotype of what a boss or manager does, right? You don't have to be aggressive and performance-oriented only. All of the recent leadership material now talks about ambition, humility, and ambition. Sanjeev Mehta, CEO of Unilever's favorite concept, ambition, and I'm a big fan of it as well. This is my favorite, promoting yourself, right? Because if you don't promote yourself, forget about it. Nobody else will. You have to make your achievements visible. You can't be beavering away, sitting in a corner, expecting to get promotions and rewards. You have to articulate the value that you're creating internally as well as externally. Also promote and mentor others. This is the sure, easiest way to grow. When you choose others and elevate them, whether it's men or women, this is a wonderful way to actually grow your personal brand. And my final thought to leave with you is the power of your unique self. There's only one of you in the world. We tend to forget it. We tend to compare ourselves with others. But this is an important reminder to be yourself because everyone else is already taken. Thank you so much. I'm going to now turn over to Shreyas to lead the Q&A.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that amazing presentation. I'm sure everyone listening have started thinking about their own brand identity now, given this. So as soon as we had announced that you would be our speaker, there was a list of questions that had come in from the IIM community. But given the constraint of time, I'm going to pick some of the best questions and hope you could answer them. So the first one that was asked is, given an illustrious and long career in the domain of marketing and branding, you must have witnessed the rising and positioning of multiple brands. Which among them are your favorites? Could you name some and why?
Really good one. In the US, I've been very fascinated with this company called Glossier. It's a D2C brand that went to 100 million so fast. And I think it's super interesting because it started as a blog, then became a product, and now it's a retail brand as well. What an interesting inverse journey, and giving a run for their money for some of these very big personal care brands. So that's my favorite, Glossier. Glossier. It's the personal care brand in the US. I've really been impressed with them. In India, I have to say Indigo, especially when they started out such a good end-to-end experience. You know, I talk about brands as living entities, 1,000 of a small gestures. Indigo, everything from the airline code to the magazine, to the nuts, to the service, all of that. I think they've done a brilliant job. One of my favorite brands. I hope that they get back to the personality and service that they had. I think growth put a lot of pressure on them. And some of you may not have experienced the Indigo when they launched initially, but truly a brand that's created a lot of traction. And I've been in multiple boardrooms where people are saying, we want an Indigo. I think in the FMCG space, Paper Boat is one brand that has cut through and created a lot of traction as well. And now all of the focus is on the D2C brands, right? That's what everyone is talking about. It's a wonderful way for brands to truly engage with their customers. I think it's changing the contours of brand management. So the D2C brands today, I think, are the ones to keep an eye on, like Mama Earth, for example, just came from nowhere and is suddenly huge. Those would be some of the ones that I would call out.
Interesting answer, ma'am. Thank you. So there's another question. So I'm sure that many companies or many domains talk about a secret recipe. And I'm sure like you would have heard this question multiple times, that is there a secret recipe for branding or marketing? But over your career, have you seen this secret recipe changing? If
Absolutely
so,
not. Absolutely not. The fundamentals of branding remain the same. We have the brand asset valuator, data over hundreds of brands over 25 years plus, which has shown us that there are 4 important pillars of brand success: differentiation, relevance, esteem, and knowledge. You have to be clear about who your target audience is. You have to be relentlessly relevant to them, constantly innovate to be differentiated as well as distinct. There's a lot of debate about differentiation versus distinctiveness now in the marketing and branding world. You have to constantly build esteem or respect for your brand. And then, of course, knowledge, which is about increasing your awareness, both physical and mental availability of the brand. So let's not fool ourselves to think that the fundamental secret sauce recipe has changed. Of course, channels has changed. Of course, brand management has become much more complex. But if you stay true to the tenets of brand asset valuator, building differentiation, relevance, esteem, and knowledge, and then having momentum for your brand, you can't go wrong.
That's a great answer, ma'am. One more question, as we were talking about individual branding, was with respect to a completely different field. So there's this question that talks about how do branding and specifically individual branding work in the world of politics? With the advent of social media, is it something that politicians should pay more attention to increase their presence across social media, and in what ways? What's your take on this, ma'am?
Absolutely. I mean, come on, we have the biggest example in front of us, right? The biggest personal brand, who is our leader. How did he do it? It is by being very clear about what the brand stood for. It is by leveraging Instagram, Twitter, every media channel. It is about visibility. So I like to think about the 3 acts of personal branding, the 3 Ds: define, design, and deliver. So first you define your brand. So if you're a politician, what is your point of view? What do you stand for? Equally, what do you not stand for? So be really clear about your stump speech. How does that translate into an identity? Especially if you look at all of these campaigns, the personal brand identity, the logo, the color, the visuals, are an equally important way of creating recognition for your personal brand, right? Obama was the first one who talked about yes, we can, and that yes, we can spirit was manifested in every touch point, from the badges to Instagram to all of the channels that he had. It was very beautifully done. And then the third is delivery. I think delivery is about really ensuring that what you say is what you mean. So it's walking the talk. I think some politicians have the gap there, and that's why sometimes they might need to rebrand. But if you mind the gap and align expectations, you can have a very, very strong political brand. So branding is useful for everything, Shreyas, not just companies or individuals, but political, political folks. It could be even clubs, sports clubs. Manchester United rebranded, right? It has nonprofits. The tools of branding have great use today, but I'm a brand evangelist. That's what I would say.
A follow-up question would be to one point that you had just raised about brand repositioning. So over the years, we have seen multiple brands reposition themselves. This might be due to a strategic decision, or it might be just because they want to venture into different fields altogether. So what are the things that companies need to keep in mind when they think about brand repositioning?
I think firstly, it shouldn't be a vanity exercise just because you don't like a logo or the representation of your brand. You should really think about relevance and differentiation. Are we less relevant? Are we not differentiated or distinct? Do we have distinct brand assets? So if any of those answers are not very clear, it may be time to represent yourself to your audiences. It goes back to what I talked about, inside first. So take time to truly articulate the value of the organization. Then secondly, reimagine the entire customer experience, from sales reps to the call center to the showroom to website, of course. Every touch point matters. So really take care of that and then communicate internally and externally. So those are the three steps. I think it's pretty logical, where you go from defining and spending time internally to reimagining the entire experience to then communication internally and externally, so everybody understands what the change is about. That indeed is the process of brand transformation. And I call it an inside out journey because it truly has to start from the inside for it to be valuable.
Thank you for that great answer, ma'am. And there's one question that talks about the current times. So in the last year, we have seen some major events and approach like the Black Lives Matters that has taken place. And that has caused companies to rethink about their marketing and branding strategies. So what is your take on branding and marketing in the so-called woke era? What is it that the companies need to keep in mind?
I think the woke era, Black Lives Matter, has only highlighted, Shreyas, that cultural context matters more than ever before, right? It was always an important component of branding, but now it's more critical than ever to truly understand the voice of the consumer, to know what are the issues that are topmost priority for them, to also know their sensibilities and be clear on what the potential impact of branding and marketing strategies would be, and then be prepared. You have to think through the sensibilities, if you're going to be offending anybody. And if you know you might be offending, then take a clear stance so that you can defend your stance. So I would say it's amplified the importance of cultural context more than ever before.
That makes a lot of sense, ma'am. Thank you. And the last question is for you. So one of the person wants to know, what is it to be an evangelist in a particular field? What is the pride factor that comes with it? And what is the fear factor that comes with it as well?
That's such a lovely question. I have to say, nobody's ever asked me that question. It does make me think. Being an evangelist means being tireless about what you believe in, right? I truly believe in the power of brand. And I can wake up and talk about brand. I get excited about the potential of brand all the time. It is about finding every opportunity to evangelize its value. In the context of branding, I've been particularly peeved that a lot of non-marketing people don't truly understand the value, but actually brand has very little to do with marketing alone. It's much bigger than that. It's fundamentally about business. Brand is business, business is brand. But for too long, people have thought about it as some fuzzy marketing thing. And so my mission is to change that, to show every CEO, CFO, COO, the C-suite, it's to firmly establish brand in the boardroom, especially in the Indian context, for companies to understand the value, to leverage it to truly supercharge their growth. It's one of those hidden tools, under leveraged tools that can truly unleash a lot more potential and growth for companies if they knew how to use it well, not just in a superficial way. So being an evangelist is that it's constantly talking about what you believe in and making others also excited about the cause. What's exciting about it is the thought leadership. You have to keep finding new ways to communicate the same message. So you're not droning on with the same old. That's been interesting for me. What's scary? Not scary, but I do feel like there's so much to be done. Do I have enough time? Am I going to live long enough to do it? And everybody's time on earth is limited. So I like to pack in the punch. I like to do as much as I possibly can. So all of these opportunities to speak, to address, students, I absolutely love, because you are the future. You will take this message. And so I'm always hoping that the message will land, and there'll be many, many more brand evangelists in the future as well.
We hope so too, ma'am. Thank you so much for being patient and answering all the questions. With that, on behalf of the entire TRBS team, I would like to thank you for taking your time out to enlighten us with your life experience as well as the knowledge. As students who aspire to be business leaders, brand image is something that is of utmost importance to us. So I'm confident that this session has enlightened people to think more about their brand identity, and everyone will apply your learnings and the learnings that we take away from this session in their lives moving forward. I would also like to thank our sponsors, State Bank of India and GRT Jewelers, as well as our brand partners, Perfetti Van Mel, and our education partner, Either Way. And with that, this amazing session comes to an end. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Shreyas. Look forward to meeting you at some point in person.
Likewise.
Meanwhile, let's definitely continue the conversation on social media. I think you've shared that with everybody. I look forward to interacting with folks there.